Ladies and gentlemen, the Warrior. I wanted to give you a very brief, very quick look at how the Warrior is right now in its current state on the alpha. These alpha servers have been a complete nightmare. You're disconnecting every couple of minutes, and now they've been taken down over the weekend. So I didn't want you to wait that long, as many of you were panicking after the big announcement of the next Warrior changes. I didn't get much footage, like 3 minutes. I played it for longer, but I wasn't attacking and stuff. I was moving around. So there is some druid footage looking at Shadow Moon Valley at the end. Firstly, let's look at the ability prune. This is the big thing people are complaining about the Warriors right now. You can see how many spells I have there. That's what it looks like, guys. That's exactly how it looks. Stance dancing is back. There's the lovely disconnect. And then I went over to live to show you comparatively how many spells I have there. All in all, you've lost about 10 to 12 spells. It is prot right there, but there aren't that much difference in terms of actual spell numbers. When compared to the other DPS classes, it wasn't worth me respecking Arms for a little brief look. Arms is the one that's in the biggest state of emergency right now. The big problem is the pruning has actually removed most of your base attack spells. Cleave, Heroic Strike, all that kind of stuff is gone. In fact, you only have 3 base attack spells, which are Colossus Smash, Mortal Strike, and Execute. That's it. Anything else comes from talents. No cleave, nothing like that. You do have Whirlwind and Sweeping Strikes for your AoE, and that's about it. Arms is the tricky one right now, which is why my damage numbers are so high. I feel like Blizzard said if anybody's stupid enough to play this, you better give them huge amounts of damage to compensate. So that's what it looks like right now. What's the caveats right now? Because Fury is going to be similar. I didn't get a chance to play Fury until the servers were gone down. Fury looks pretty similar. The big weird thing right now is the return of stance dancing means they've needed to pad out the other stances, which is defensive stance, right? Berserk stance is no more. So what they've decided to do is even make some talents, Mass Spell Reflect being the obvious one, defensive stance only. Yeah, Rallying Cry, defensive stance only. Mocking Banner, defensive stance only. Don't mind that too much, although there are situations where a taunt and I can totally cope with that. But the big one is the loss of the flavor for the Warrior right now, which is a lot of things I think I want to comment on and say we need a return to, really. Even after just a brief play, I played the Warrior till 92 on the Horde side before it got this latest update. You could already feel that things like Normal Spell Reflect missing was a big thing, Shield Wall being gone. All these abilities that we're just more than used to, the banners being gone. You might see the icon there for Skull Banner. That's actually just Recklessness, which gives you a slight buff to special attacks. It's nothing major as your major DPS cooldown. Warriors are in a very, very unusual state, and I can see why people are panicking. At the moment, it's hard to say where they're going with this. You would think that Arms would be the easiest one to deal with, as it is the one way we hit with the heavy two-hander. But it is the one that's really seeming to struggle to find its niche. I've got to say, having just Mortal Strike, Colossus Smash, and Execute as your only main offensive abilities is really crappy. And I'm looking to see at least a return. We had Slam removed. Let's have Overpower back at least. It makes a lot of sense for Arms Warriors to be able to overpower people with a big two-hander. If you watch Game of Thrones, I tend to look at Warriors as being a bit like the Mountain. He's the big beast carrying the big weapon, and Overpower makes a lot of sense. I would like to have that little filler spell going on, because I often just feel like we're waiting for Rage. I felt that on the Alpha straight away. I was waiting for Rage to do something. Colossus Smash has a big cooldown if you don't get a proc. Mortal Strike has a cooldown alongside with it, and Execute is just a Rage dump. So you could almost say, in essence, we just have 2 DPS base spells, which are Mortal Strike and Colossus Smash, and one of them has a rather large cooldown, which obviously isn't working out. Blizz has said they're going to do a major pass on Arms to see how it plays out. Fury is looking pretty much the same from those who did play it. The feedback I'm getting there is there's a lot of wasted global cooldowns where we just can't do anything. We don't have any buttons to press. That's the big problem right now. The Warrior has been the biggest victim of the ability prune. I have played pretty much every single class right now in the game. There's only one missing, and that is the Warlock. I have played and leveled and done every other class now. I managed to level the Druid on the Alpha and the Shaman tonight, and then I went on to the Warrior before the servers dived. I got to play those out. The only one I haven't played is the Warlock, which I know hasn't suffered too badly from conversations. The Warrior's just been such a heavy victim of ability pruning. All the little niches that we liked, I'm not bothered whether Arms gets another pass particularly, and it's going to happen. Arms is in a very weird state. I'm really concerned about the lack of flavor. Really concerned about the lack of flavor that's going on with the loss of just abilities we're so used to over time. Of course, Thunderclap moving to defensive stance, I'm not too bothered about, because we no longer generate things like deep wounds and all that kind of stuff, and it's just an AoE slow effectively for Arms. There's certainly no comparison between it and using Whirlwind for DPS purposes. You're not trying to Thunderclap to do anything in terms of DPS. It's just an AoE slow. The next big concern, though, the return of stance dancing and putting abilities like Mass Spell Reflect, that AoE slow, into defensive stance only. It screams the return of stance dancing macros, especially for the PvPers. It's not too often we need to do that stuff in PvE, in which case we can pretty much just bind defensive stance. Like I've had defensive stance bound since I was level 1, or level 10 I should say, in the vanilla era, so it's no big issue for me, and it won't be a real big issue for most PvEers, I don't think. But for the PvPers who need to be super quick with things like Spell Reflect and doing all that kind of stuff, it's going to be pretty awkward. And if we have to return to that Cataclysm style of macro dancing, nobody wants that. That was what we moved away from. That was the whole point of removing stances in the first place. Will they then enforce something like you can't stance macro? Is it going to be a niche return to some sort of player skill to stance dance? I actually don't mind that too much. I always liked stance dancing as a warrior. It was a good sign of a good warrior if they could stance dance effectively. But if we are looking to keep it as macros again, nobody wants that. Ain't nobody even interested in that kind of stuff, and I really hope we don't see that. So there you go. It's a very brief look. Only a few minutes on it, guys. I'll get back to it as soon as I can. The alpha servers should be up on Monday where I can spend more time with the warrior. I'll bring you some Fury stuff. I've already done a video featuring a prot warrior. Go check that out. It's the dungeon video. All right, guys. That's a brief look at it. I'll see you later.